Hey everybody, if you've clicked on this video, you know what it's about. We're going to be going through the Codex entries in Greedfall up to this point. We will be covering all of the character entries, the places entries, some of the creatures, specifically these guardians. I'm not going to go through every ingredient. I don't think there's anything that interesting in here. Just game guide stuff we're going to be skipping. Notes, we're going to be skipping these as well, only because we will have already read them when we pick them up, and we'll just mark them all as read. After this, we'll be able to read any updated or new Codex entries as they come up, and I'm sure we're going to find some kind of interesting tidbits in here that we haven't touched on yet. So if you want to grab your coffee or your tea or your water or whatever it is that you want that will help you just relax and focus on listening to the sweet, subtle sounds of my voice, that would be great. There might be some photos that are of interest, but I think generally you're going to be pretty safe to just listen. So, here we go. Starting with the merchant congregation, Mr. Desarde. Brought up at the court of the Prince d'Orsay, and with his son Constantin, you've benefited from the best tutors and masters of arms. As skilled in combat as in games of the mind, you've also shown early aptitudes for light magic. Your cousin has been more calm and thoughtful than ever, and you've always tried to protect him from the annoyances he has the power to attract, which has earned you the respect of your uncle and probably the appointment as legate. In other words, the senior diplomat on the island of Cieaura. It is with a heavy heart that you will have to leave behind your mother, suffering from the Malachor and close to death. But the opportunity that is offered to you away from the deadly atmosphere of Serene to accompany your cousin and to discover new shores is not one that can be refused. Okay, now Constantin, our cousin. Son of the mighty Prince d'Orsay and his second wife, Constantin is your cousin. You know him from your earliest childhood and have always been very close. I wonder if the second wife thing is going to be important. Despised by his father, who always seemed to regret the death of his first son and used by his mother, you're probably the only true friend and confidant he has. Although very intelligent, his whimsical temperament often made him look like an inconsistent boy until the day his father finally decided to put him to the test by naming him governor of the young colony of the congregation on Cieaura. Constantin has now returned to his palace in New Serene and will have to devote himself to his new governorship. Faced with these new responsibilities, he will need you more than ever, both as a legate and as a friend. Lady Lorraine of Morang. Madame de Morang, I don't think I'm pronouncing that correctly, is an accomplished diplomat as well as an excellent manager. In just a few years, she has transferred what was only a small isolated fort into a city full of life. Although she was dismissed for the benefit of your cousin, she does not seem to resent it and volunteered to support him in the new position rather than return to Serene. Some say that she would have taken a passion for this island as well as for the culture of the natives, and that she would have even begun to learn their language. Princess Desarde, this is our mother, is a sister of Prince d'Orsay and your mother. She's always shown you a lot of tenderness, which is not common among the congregation nobility. She unfortunately came down with the Malachor some time ago and has been living in isolation since then, her suffering and appearance preventing her from maintaining her role at court. Although she may be very sorry to see you leave Serene and be far from her, she prefers her only child to visit more welcoming shores and seek a cure for her people, rather than stay by her side, waiting for her death. She was not in a good spot when we left at all. Monsieur de Courcillon. You have known Mr. de Courcillon for years. This very cultivated man has taught you and your cousin Constantin history, the workings of politics, and the subtleties of diplomacy. You do not know if your uncle has sent him to you in the hope that he will keep an eye on you, or if he wanted to come himself, driven by the affection he has for you and his ever-lingering curiosity. After all, you've been hearing for years about this fascinating island and mysteries it contains, which he hopes to shed some light on. So that's everybody in the merchant congregation. In Thélème, Cardinal Antonius has been Théléme's ambassador to Serene for several years. He's a cunning man versed in the subtleties of politics, but also a man of faith who has not yet given up the hope of converting the largest city of the congregation to his faith. Although a member of the missionary order, like many ambassadors, he is said to be close enough to the Inquisition and has often been seen collaborating with the most extreme defenders of the faith. Mother Cardinal Cornelia. Now, she's been pretty good so far, I think. We'll see what happens. Cardinal Mother Cornelia is the governor of San Mateus and the lands of Teleme on Tier 4D in recent years. Although she did not found the colony, it grew enormously under her leadership. She is highly respected by her peers, both for her fervent faith and her undeniable diplomatic skills. With unparalleled political cunning, she subtly manipulates her entourage as well as the representatives of the various orders and guilds who come to her court. She is said to be loyal to Teleme, but without pity for those who dare to jeopardize her jeopardize her will to make San Mateus the light of Tier 4D. Our good friend Petrus, look at him. Bishop Petrus is part of the Order of Missionaries, of which he is a brilliant representative, skillful in politics and a fine diplomat. He knows how to be flexible about his religious ideas to better achieve his goals. For a few years, he was a diplomat at your uncle's court in Serene, where he knew you when you were only a child. He shows you good-heartedness and paternal kindness, but does not hesitate to use his tremendous manipulative skills to help you achieve your goals. Like any important member of the Teleme clergy, he's also a seasoned user of light magic. Now this guy, Inquisitor Aloysius, I believe is how he said it. The member of the Order Luminous, Teleme's Inquisition. He's an uncompromising man, violent and blinded by an extreme faith that considers politics and diplomacy as obstacles. He will stop at nothing to achieve his goal, the absolute conversion of all those he meets and the purification of the heretics. He was the one that we saw burning that Guardian when we first entered this area. Okay, so that's Teleme. The Bridge Alliance. Ambassador Sahin, who has long been a renowned professor at Al Saad University, was appointed several years ago to represent the Serene Bridge Alliance. After a long time, and vainly, he tried to convince the merchant princes, particularly Prince d'Orsay, to join the alliance. He now devotes himself to the defense of the economic interests of his nation in the region. Okay. Governor Buren is above all a scientist, passionate about alchemy and medicine, although he is highly regarded for his diplomatic qualities. He was appointed head of Hikmet and the territories of the Alliance on Tier 4D in the hope that a man also focused on medicine would quickly discover a cure for the Malachor. Alas, although he has done everything to attract the greatest minds of his nation and has given them all the means in his possession, a cure still eludes him. His lack of interest and respect with the natives, or respect for the natives, has led to a war of attrition with many clans, putting him in a delicate situation. I believe he's the one that started our quest of going to find those missing, or the missing research expedition, which eventually led to Afra. So she's a renowned naturalist who has joined Tier 4D to help identify the many plants specific to this island. She has the full trust of Governor Buren, who sent her to accompany a small research expedition to find the ingredients of a cure for the Malachor. She's a young woman who's passionate about science and discovery, skilled in making all kinds of potions, and very experienced in handling firearms. Okay, so that's the Bridge Alliance. Coin Guard, we got our good buddy Kurt. So you've known Kurt for many years when he became yours and Constantine's weapon master. His childhood was tough and he had a weapon in his hand as soon as he was old enough to hold one. Although he has obviously suffered from it, he does not seem bitter, just a little cynical, and he shows you and your cousin an almost brotherly protective affection. Kurt asked you to meet one of his young recruits he wanted to assign to protect Constantine. Alas, it turned out that this young man died under strange circumstances after investigation. You discovered that he had been sent to a secret training camp and died there. Okay, so this is sad, but this is good to know that it seems as if these entries will update based on the quests that we do for them. After Kurt was able to discover the location of this notorious camp, he asked you to accompany him. What you discovered there made your friend angry. Recruits were humiliated, abused, and even tortured to be transformed into conscienceless killers. You dismantled the camp and allowed Kurt to get revenge for the death of his protege. Deeply shocked to learn of Commander Torsten's involvement in this matter, Kurt decided to disobey his orders. We still haven't seen the end of his quest, I don't think. Quartermaster Manfred has his own entry. Interesting. He's in charge of the Coin Guard barracks in New Serene. He's an old acquaintance of Kurt, an honorable soldier who defends the old values of his guild as he can. Seems to be a lot going on underneath him that he's not fully aware of. On to the Knots. We have Admiral Cabral. She's led the Knots Guild for several years. She's a woman with a strong character, accustomed to being obeyed, who expects loyalty from her subordinates. Yet, like everyone else, she considers the members of her guild and her crew as family, and while she often shows severity, she also shows a very protective instinct towards her own. We have our friend Vasco. While the crossing to New Serene had gone smoothly, Vasco was laid off on his arrival by Admiral Cabral, and he seems to deeply resent this. As a sea given, he has some regrets about the life he could have had if it had not been handed over to the Knots when he was just a baby. Despite this, he's a proud and loyal young man to the Knots, who has risen to the rank of captain through his bravery at sea. He's a formidable fencer. He does not hesitate to poison his blade to overcome the toughest enemies. Vasco asked for your help to get his hands on the secret files showing where he came from. He slipped into the New Serene Harbor office to find these documents, thanks to which he finally discovered his origins. Vasco comes from the noble Darcy family from Serene and was originally a citizen of the merchant congregation. Always saddened at the thought of missing out on the life that should have been his, Vasco asked you to help find his brother, Bastian Darcy, sent to Cieaura by his family to trade. You had to pull this thoughtless and frivolous young man from the clutches of debt collectors so that Vasco could finally meet him and finally realize how much he appreciated his Knot life. Determined to regain the favor of Admiral Cabral, Vasco asked you for your help to accomplish a loyalty mission consisting in finding out the circumstances of the sinking of one of their ships. Having managed to prove that the captain's navigational qualities were not in question, Vasco received a pardon from the Admiral and a new tattoo to prove it. It was a subtle addition, but he did add to his facial tats. Okay, that's the Knots. Now we're getting into the natives of Cieaura. These ones are probably going to be some of the more interesting. So let's start with Cieaura. She's one of the daughters of Bladnid, the leader of the Gaius Rad clan of the village of Verdraise. She is also their Donegad. She is a proud young woman, very attached to her people and her mother, but she is also curious and seems to want to learn as much as possible about the settlers. Her knowledge of native culture and her talent for magic could be very helpful. Your friend asked you to help her find her mother, who had disappeared on the battlefield. Alas, you only found out that the Alliance soldiers had brought back her body to their outpost. Nevertheless, you managed to bring her remains back to the village. Alas, in your return, you discovered that Talabian missionaries had settled there, preventing a traditional burial from taking place. And that's where her story ends currently. Eseld, although physically very different, Eseld is Cieaura's twin sister. She's a fierce warrior who dreams of battles and revenge, but who is nevertheless aware that after the defeat of Didakidin Nadegis, it will take time for her people to recover. Although she has not yet been officially chosen to take over from her mother, Chief Bladnid, she will likely be named by the Gaius Rad. Now we have Mev. Mev is both the Tirna Har Kadaktis, the highest spiritual authority of Cieaura, and the head of the Animan Shadi clan, the shadow spirits of the village of Vig Shadir. Her knowledge of the mysteries of the island, remedies, and religious practices, as well as the natural friendship with the most ferocious beasts, earned her immense respect from the natives, although it would probably be more accurate to say that they fear her. She's less involved in political affairs and lives mostly isolated to meditate and maintain the strong link that binds her to the island of Cieaura. And she seems extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. She was all but dead, and well, she's still around. Deirdre is the formidable leader of the Kangedin Anedis clan, the Storm Warriors of the village of Vedlug. She's a cunning woman whose strength is respected. She makes no concessions to the settlers who have come to invade her island. However, some clans reproach her for her brutal approach and warlike temperament, thinking that a conflict with the newcomers can only bring ruin. And lastly, we have Ulan. He is the leader of the Sasag Sanemis clan, the Bone Blowers. They're the ones that have, they have all the, basically these giant bones encircling their entire encampment, which is really cool. He's a clever politician who took advantage of the arrival of settlers to enrich and enhance his village, which had lost much of its importance following the many attacks and kidnappings they had suffered. A supporter of peace, he will do anything in his power to maintain the best relationship possible with the settlers, yet the other native clans look at him with a certain mistrust, finding his friendship with the newcomers rather suspicious. Okay, everything in terms of factions and characters is up to date now. Let's move over to places. So on the continent of Gakane, which is where we came from, we have an entry for Serene. Now, Serene's the biggest city in the merchant congregation and one of the most important ports on the continent. It's a very old city that sea trade has long made rich, but is also the ultimate diplomatic city thanks to the neutrality of the congregation. You can find everything you can imagine here. People from all over the world come together, and its markets are full of the most exotic goods. For over a century, Serene's splendor radiated, attracting the best artists and philosophers of the time, despite the appearance of the Malachor. But since a little over 20 years, the deterioration of the congregation's relations with the Knots and an aggravated epidemic have drastically reduced its prestige and population. Today, Serene's a city that barely survives by clinging desperately to its past splendor. Okay, so on the island of Cieaura, do we have, yeah, okay, we're going to start with New Serene. Perfect. The city of New Serene was founded around 5 years ago by Madame de Morang on the site of a small fort built by the congregation shortly before. Ideally located in a cove where boats can anchor easily and halfway from cities on the two other nations of the island continent, this young city is constantly growing and teeming with new settlers. New Serene represents all the hopes of the congregation, a new center of diplomatic exchange, a trading post, the first step towards colonizing the island, and of course the birthplace of a discovery for a cure to the Malachor. Okay. Next we have the Shore of the Tall Bones. Glend Namvar is a coastal region bordered by high granite cliffs located southeast of Cieaura. Whales sometimes approach, and their bones give it its native name, the Shore of the Tall Bones. Okay, those are whale bones. Cool. Village of Vignamri. This village belongs to the Sasag Sinemis, the Bone Blower clan. Its name means the bones of the king in the native language, perhaps because the village's profession is carving whale bones. Could also be because of the legend saying that the first guardian died nearby. It has long been one of the most important villages on the island, and its clan was highly respected until many disappearances weakened it and earned it the reputation of being cursed. However, since Ulan has taken charge at the head of the clan, things have changed. Their ambitious leader knew how to take advantage of the arrival of the colonists to regain some of the splendor that his village had lost. So within each of these entries, we might have multiple specific villages being talked about. Like this next one, still in the Shore of the Tall Bones, called Bedri. According to legends, the High King who went to war against the people of the sea and became the first guardian fell far from here and was buried in this burial mound. The Denegada of the Sasag Sinemis clan had custody of it, but your mother was abducted before she could share her knowledge, so the exact location of this sacred place has since been forgotten. Huh. Okay. The Red Woods. Vidrad is a forested area north of New Serene. The species of trees with flaming foliage in this forest are probably at the origin of the native name, the Red Woods. Village of Verdrays. This village is that of Gaius Red, the Red Spear clan. Its native name means the Spearwood, because the clan that built it has always been famous in combat, and the whole island knows the courage and the honor of its warriors. Its eldest tell many stories of battles, including the one that set them against the people of the sea who had settled nearby. Legend has it that before this mythical battle, the trees of the surrounding forest offered their branches to defend the island. The spears of fallen warriors are used to decorate the village. Huh. I remember we would see those in their village. So that's cool. Didekidin Nadageus. These strange ruins that look more like the continent's buildings than natives' homes were devastated by a legendary battle. Natives say that a city built by people of the sea stood here, and it was the first to be swept away of the giant creatures that the natives called guardians. It is in this mythical and symbolically very strong site that Queen Bladnid chose to face the Bridge Alliance. That's the place where we got to and found her sister, and then learned about the fate of her mother. Balristel. When the natives went to seal a pact or an agreement, they bring in a guardian of promises who inscribes symbols in the stone of the sacred language of the Denegada corresponding to this agreement. It is in this sacred clearing that the natives set up these stones. Balristel means beside the promises set in stone. Then we have a Bridge Alliance camp. This outpost was established by the Bridge Alliance to accommodate their troops before the great battle against Queen Bladnid. Since their victory, these troops have mostly returned to Hikmet. The camp is mainly used to treat the wounded while maintaining their hold on the surrounding territories. Okay, now we have Magasvar, the Vale of the Great Battle. This is a region with varied landscapes, rocky in the north and the east, and marshy in the west. The ancient ruins that witnessed legendary clashes gave it its native name, the Valley of Great Combat, or the Vale of the Great Battle. Did Gidensen Camp These ruins, traces of the presence of the famous people of the sea and witnesses of the legendary victory of the natives, today serve as a bastion to Donea Escregao, rebels fighting against the invasion of the settlers from the continent. Then we have the village of Vigulskub, or Vigulsk. Yeah, Vigulsob, close. This village is that of the clan of the Black Ogs. Its name also means the Black Ogs village in its native language. This isolationist clan lives in symbiosis with its tutelary animals, and even the other native clans are wary of their wild nature. Okay, going into the Singing Waters area. Wenshaganow is a coastal region crossed by a river. The local inhabitants very in touch with the sea and the water, named it the Singing Waters for this reason. We have the village of Shevai. This village is that of the Yagag Srodi, a clan of healers and fishermen who live between the sea and the river and use the many plants that grow at the water's edge to treat the sick and wounded. Its name means white water in the native language. Then we have a ghost camp. It's an isolated and hidden camp built by the coin guards used to train selected recruits to make them elite troops, which is no longer around. The region of Hikmet. It's the area on the east side of the island where, at the mouth of the river, the settlers of the Bridge Alliance set foot on Cieaura for the first time and founded their city. The city of Hikmet, whose Bridge Alliance began construction 15 years ago, is the first city built by settlers on the continent on Cieaura. This new city quickly attracted many scholars, mostly from Al-Sad, curious to discover the mysteries of Cieaura, to classify its strange fauna and its unknown flora. There's an outpost there. It's the last line of defense before the city walls of Hikmet. It was built to try to resist the incessant attacks of the natives at war with the Alliance. Okay, San Mateus. This will be interesting. Region of San Mateus lies to the west of Cieaura. Thélème built its city in a cove to anchor ships as far as possible from the city of their enemies, the Bridge Alliance. City of San Mateus. City was built by Thélème a few years after the installation of the Alliance on this island. It was named in honor of Saint Matthias, the holy founder of the religious nation. And if you'll recall, most recently, it is said that the tablets that we are currently looking for were written by Saint Matthias, or Matthias himself. Went out to sea and settled on a wonderful island that he had discovered. Many historians think it could be Cieaura, and many pilgrims come here hoping to walk in the footsteps of this holy man. East Outpost. This outpost built east of San Mateus serves to protect the city from possible attacks. Okay. The Ancient Woods. Fresenagad is a particularly wild forest area inhabited only by the most isolationist natives, or by those who want to hide. They named it the Forest of the Ancients because of the venerable age of the trees found there. Village of Vigshadir. This village is that of the Anaman Shadi, the clan of the Shadow Spirits, a clan focused around rituals whose village is considered sacred by all the natives, in particular because its inhabitants are responsible for the abundant hunts of the entire island. Its name means long shadows, perhaps because of the clan that inhabits it, or the many large trees that surround it. This is the original village of the Tirna Har Kadaktis, the Mistress of Wisdom. Course of the Great Hunt. It is on this path that the Great Hunt ritual takes place. The natives attach bells to keep the animals away, because it is one of them who plays the role of the white andrig, which the rest of the village must chase for hunting to be abundant in the coming year. Now, when this originally came up, I don't know if it's just like if it's a ritual where they are literally hunting that person, or if it's just a kind of a faux hunting scenario where they're like chasing them and then they have to catch them, and that's counting as hunting them just for the sake of the ritual. I don't know. We have Credgwen. The name of the sanctuary means heart of trees in native language. It is an important place of power and rituals where only the wisest Donegada can enter safely, because it is said the place is guarded. Okay. The Black Lands. Teardob is the region whose land in many places still bears the mark of the terrible fire that ravaged it. This dark color is at the origin of its name, the Black Lands. We have the village of Eden, which we just recently discovered. Eden's a strange village, a kind of experiment carried out by the missionaries of Thélème, aiming at creating a place resembling that described in the life of Saint Matthias. A place of harmony between natives and the religious. It was built around the village of Vigsonigad, whose name means the village of the old sage. Thélème saw a reference to Saint Matthias, which motivated their choice. Those tablets, I think. Village of Vedlug. This village is that of the Sengedin Anedis, The fearsome storm warriors. Like the wood in which it was built, this village was destroyed by a fire after a storm and then rebuilt. This resilience made the clan's pride and gave the village its name, the Lightning Wood. Strange Sanctuary. This underground sanctuary, whose door is protected by Thunder Tree mystery, hosts the bloody rituals of the Sangedin Anidus. We have Vedvilvi. Although few natives live in these swamps, Vedvilvi is the region inhabited by many animals and wild creatures, which are the origin of its name, the Swamp of 1,000 Lives. Now, is this the place where we ran into the woman who was by that isolated man with the drums? And like the Man of 1,000 Faces or something? Swamp of 1,000 Lives. Swamp Sanctuary. This isolated place in the swamps is a sanctuary where it would be possible to meet the devil revered by the Sangedin Anidus once the proper ritual is performed. We have the Coin Arena. The arena is held by the Coin Guard. It serves as a training ground and in town for all guards wishing to put their skills to the test. It is obviously only used for all kinds of spectacular clashes. Gamblers gather in the hopes that their champion will win them big, and the guard, of course, takes their commission. Now, we also have some entries here for creatures. We've got all the basic creatures that we're not going to go through. I think the most important things, these docentats, are the worst. We have a bunch of weird little lizard-like turtle hybrids. Trying to see if any of these are really important. Not really. Common fauna, tetra. Oh, tetra, that's what these little birds are called. Those turkey peacock hybrids. Fearful, it flees as soon as approached, but its beautiful feathers and its tasty flesh make it a hunting target even for the natives of the island. Okay, we're going to go into the Guardians on Tier 4D. So there's this unknown creature. Captured on the remote island of Tier 4D and brought back by boat, this giant unfortunately awakened before being disembarked and disemboweled the hold of the ship. This is the one that we ran into at the very beginning of the game. The gigantic creature with bark skin was clearly already weakened by the crossing, as well as the many shackles that restrained it, yet it showed monstrous strength in its last desperate attack to free itself. We have the Nadag Frezemen. This Nadag looks like a deer with its antlers and the elongated shape of its muzzle. It is linked to the woods and forests and is ready to protect it with all its might. We have the Nadag Vedamen. This repulsive Nadag, this is the one that we ran into it with the drums, has long tentacles on the front of its head, is the guardian of the marshes and the flooded areas. In a page of the professor's journal, you found the story of an attack by this creature. Although attacks from its tentacles would be devastating, it is possible to cut them off. You also found a page discussing the poison clouds that the creature is able to create. You should think of taking antidotes with you before you face it, and of course try as much as possible to avoid these clouds. The Nadag Glendaman, undeniably a protector of the coast. According to a message you found, this terrible creature is also resistant to light magic. Then we have the Dag Megamen. The large clawed and horned biped with a mask and a spear is probably physically the one that seems the most human, as the guardian of the plains and the hills. It would seem from the professor's notes that the guardian's attacks can be parried and countered. The professor's guard suggested using a fast weapon like a rapier and to poison it. So I think that's probably about it, you guys. All of this stuff will be covered off. We've read all of these entries for notes when we would have picked them up. So with that, we are completely up to date. And if you made it this far, thanks for watching. The code word is Cieaura for life. Bye for now.